Yes. Okay. Great. So this was the title for today's session, as you know, Wording the World Stage, Critical Writing on Performances. And hoping that we have about like most of the people in the class, I would now want to ask you these questions, because it is on the basis of these questions that any writing on performance can be done. And the reason why I'm focusing on writing is that, yes, staging something on, like enacting something as an embodiment, as performance, as acting, as dance, as music, is also a way of writing. But in this session, I'm particularly going to talk about the texts that are generated before and after performances, right? So in that context, I would like to ask these questions to you, and please feel free to throw your nascent, advanced, expert ideas at me, and let me see what I can make of it, okay? So why do you think is writing on, for, or about performance important? And this is a question for everyone. So please take up, whoever wants to take it. Any question that excites you, you can just go ahead. I'll read them one by one, and then you can say. What could be the aspects of performance criticism? And I hope you have heard this term before. If not, even that could be your point of view. More important than analyzing in any kind of writing, okay? What component of performance should we focus more? So when I say component of performance, I heard Sachin told me, and I assume that you have read some parts of Natyakalaasadhana at least, or at least cursorily started reading about it. So you might be introduced to some components of performance, and you know that there are certain parameters on which performance stands, right? So which performance components should you focus more and which less, if there is anything less or more in that story? How much of the connection with the play text or the cultural, social, and historical event that begot the performance be part of the critical writing on the performance? So how do you think is the history, the background, the very reason why the performance happened has a role to play in writings that come about the performance later on? So what is the relationship? So just think aloud these questions and let me know. What events do you consider performance? Very, very important question. Now, performance is a big term. It's a big umbrella term under which lots of things come. What are the things that you understand as performance? Okay, so please shoot your answers at me. What would you consider a good piece of performance criticism? What should be objective? Should it be objective or subjective? Are performance reviews, performance analysis, performance criticism, critical ideas? So what does the class think about all these questions? So if you can just take your turn and quickly think about it. And there is nothing wrong or right here. I understand you are at the very beginning stage of your discipline. So I'm not expecting any correct answers. So if correct answers come, that it's magic. Okay, so don't be afraid to tell whatever comes to your mind. So first question first, what do you consider performance? What is performance to you? Like, tell me, this is what I saw. I consider that as performance. You have to be a little interactive class. Anything. Name a performance. Yes, go ahead, Chandana.
Ma'am, if it's the importance, I think it's more of what you bring to the stage and what people have to say to it. If it's a critical writing, it's like either for improvising or to see if the person can get better.
Okay, yes, good word, improvisation. I'll write it down. I'll ensure that it comes up. Good, I take it. So improvisation and how it has effects on the audience, right? Great. Next. So questions are up there for you. Take anyone, think, and let me know. Yes, I can see the hand going up, Chandana. So you can speak, Chandana. Unmute yourself and speak, please.
Ma'am, I wanted to say for the question, like, what is performance? Performance is basically, for me, is when you express your feelings, thoughts, no matter what it is, when you showcase it to the audience.
That's a performance. Okay, so just letting out your inner voices, inner anxieties, inner feelings in whatever form for an audience is performance for you, right, Chandana?
Yes, ma'am.
Channeling of inner energies outside, if I can make it a little spiritual, right? Okay, great. What else? Any other question that you found to be more interesting than the others, the questions that I raised? Come on.
Ma'am, for the first question, for example, if a play was performed in the 1940s or something and someone writes about it, even now we can sort of read it and get some insight on what actually happened.
Very good, very good. So you're coming to a very good point. we all have to remember that performances are ephemeral, right? You can't hold on to them because the performance lives in the moment. And writing about performance is a way of actually holding on to it, that particular moment of the performance. And that's why it's very significant. That's why it has, and very rightly said, now there's mobile phones, everybody's recording first and seeing it later. So we don't see through our eyes first, we see through our mobile phones or cameras first, right? But that was not the thing that happened forever, right? So at a time when there was no recording devices, or recording devices were very expensive, that every other day you don't record stuff, then writing was a way of immortalizing something, maybe a certain production. And very rightly said that you've brought in a very right anecdote for the significance of writing about performances or writing on performances. Yes, thank you, Aishwarya. So you see, there's no wrong answers you can give me. You give me any answer, I'll make it right. So please give me answers. Yes, class? No more? Okay, great then. So I'll not nudge you any further, but these are ideas that you should keep thinking about because these are the points of entry into any kind of writing that you do about performances, okay? And also to remember that you're constantly writing about a performance, right? Because it's also when you write, for example, anything like a performance review, someone writes a fantastic or a scathing performance review, okay? What will you do? Do you think it will affect the production team? It will affect the director? It will affect the actors? Not at all. Yes? Does it affect or does it not affect? Yes, Lay?
No, ma'am, it encourages them to do more.
It definitely encourages them to do more. Any kind of, as Bollywood tells us, any advertisement is good advertisement, right? So good or bad, whatever you write, it's basically, that means people are talking about it, people are seeing it. And even if it is scathing, even if it is very, very critical, negative, that means there is something that needs to change possibly. And there is a high chance that the production team, that the actors, that the director will go back and try to make certain changes so that the opinion changes. Or if you think that's a scathing remark because what the director says and the way the director says it, then I would say that is what the director wanted, because it wanted to create that reactionary response in the audience, and that it has received it. So it will just show that yes, the performance fulfills its intention, right? So in either way, performance is giving, the writing about a performance is giving feedback, whether good or bad, but it is a feedback for the entire team, entire production team, entire group of people who are involved in the making of the performance. Agreed? All of us? Okay, great then. So it's not that there is only these kinds of critical writing and performance, but if you loosely think about it, because we have to start somewhere, right? If we always say nothing is possible, nothing is fixed, then where do we start as students? Then just to make it simplified, I have categorized it into 3 genres of writing. And the reason why I have categorized it, I'll tell you in a while. So one is a performance review. The second is performance criticism. And the third is critical writing, which uses performance analysis. Now, I had this question in the earlier slide, but where I asked you, do you think performance reviews, performance criticism, performance analysis, these are synonymous terms? So I'll just want to soundboard this idea. So what do you think? Like, are they same? If they're same, then why are they on different circles? If they are not, what are the points of coming together? What are the points of difference? Yes, class? And even teachers are welcome, please, if you're present, even you are welcome to voice your opinions. So I love my classes to be very, very interactive. Okay, so performance reviews are, give me where you've read performance reviews. Where do you read performance reviews? Have you, anyone of you read performance reviews? Anywhere?
For example, movie reviews, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Kind of movie reviews, yeah. Where have you read it?
Just online.
Online, okay. Online, blogs maybe nowadays.
Yes,
we have blogs. Yes. Okay, great.
From newspapers as well, ma'am.
Very good, very good. Newspapers as well. We are going to come to that point, and it's good that you brought up, is that there's a kind of reviews that we often read in newspapers. And as far as I remember, Telegraph, Hindu, Times of India, all on Sundays have a special page where they have a section which is about reviews of books, reviews of performances, reviews of movies, right? So I remember in my school days, I was like very, very keen on reading that page where the reviews came up, and it would also almost kind of seal my heart of whether I want to see that thing, do that thing, read that thing, and things like that, right? So when something is written in the newspaper, what do you think is the agenda of that kind of writing? Is there an agenda? Is there an agenda in any kind of writing when you write?
Yes, ma'am, to gather more, to grab the attention of more people.
To grab attention of people. For what? What's the function? What's the ultimate motive that?
Ma'am, for example, if it's a movie review or something, and if you write or give it in the newspaper, more people are going to read the review and probably they're going to like it and probably will watch the movie.
Exactly. Exactly. You've hit right on the point. Go and watch the movie, right? Similarly, if I write a wonderful performance review, and when I say wonderful, doesn't mean saying only good things, but very, very honest, but yet critical, and yet looking at the bringing out and exposing what the director, what the actors do wonderfully, will actually invite more and more audiences to go and watch the performance, right? So potential audiences to real audiences, that transformation happens possibly at some level because of some amount of critical writing. Do you agree or you don't agree? Does writing have an effect on things like that? Agreed? With Harsha? Yes. Okay. So yes, when as Harsha said, movie review, you go and read the movie review, and then you're curious, you want to know more about the movie, and then you want to watch it. So what do? Go ahead, buy a ticket, go to the movie hall and watch it, right? So similarly, for performance reviews, there's one, in the newspapers or in the popular journals, popular spaces, blogs, the one pure agenda is to make more people go and watch it, more people go and attend it, more people go and experience it, okay? Whatever that performance is, dance, installation art, or whatever, street performance. There are so many different kinds of performances. And that's one of the questions that was there on the question list, is that what are the different kinds of performances that you can write on? Or what events do you call performances? And you didn't dwell on that question much, but yes, that had the force of actually making an entire class in itself, is that what can we call as performance? So second is performance criticism. And then critical writing, which I don't know if you have seen such kind of writing already. And all of this is with a kind of an assumption that you just started your course, maybe more and grander things are just coming your way. And I'm sure you will get to know it in 6 months, but I'm not sure. So just assuming maybe you're just scratching on the surface. So I will show you critical writing on performance studies, on performances, which can be in the genre of critical writing, performance studies, and things like that. Performance criticism, how review and criticism is different and also same. Where do they come in the same box, and where do they move apart? Okay, so I'm going to show all of that. And for that, I have taken the help of a performance named Pebet, Handsome Kanhailal, as work. I hope you've heard about it. If you haven't, there's no problem. I've tried my level best to figure out a video, but unfortunately they're so like tight about copyright issues. I even wrote to my friend Rosio, who happens to be one of the almost a member of the team now, but maybe I was too late. I haven't been able to reach out, and he hasn't been able to give me a video for that. So what I did, I went to the Kalakshetra website and tried to figure out what is the most authentic available video on this that I can show my students. And at least for you to understand what text I'm talking about, I'll show you this clip. And also, very importantly, why I remember it and why I wanted to work on it is because I'll not be only talking from my experience of the clip. I saw it live in the School of Arts and Aesthetics just behind our building. Okay, so I have clippings from that performances. Unfortunate thing, I did not do a video. I was clicking pictures. So those are good pictures that I've taken. So I'll share some of them with you so that you just see them, because pictures of events are also very important. They give you an idea of what goes into writing. And most probably, if I hadn't written a review, one of these pictures which actually have gone into that particular scene, that the picture is there and then the writing along with it, right? So any one of those pictures would have made sense. Okay, so just let me know if I'm going to the last link here. I pasted it here, but I've also opened it for you. So if there are problems with the video, let me know that, ma'am, I can't see this or something. Sachin, is it visible? No?
No,
it's not visible.
I think you need to share screen it again.
Okay. I got it.
Yes. Screen it again, then it might be.
I think it's on a different tab. That's why.
Yes, now it's visible.
Visible?
Yes, great. Audio is not good.
Not visible?
Oh, it's visible, but the audio is not.
The
very
audio
good.
is not. Okay. What?
Maybe it's a problem with the Zoom.
How does it happen?
Just play it. Just play it.
Sachin, I'll paste it in the chat box for you. Can you quickly show it to the class if that works? Because let's not waste time.
Yeah.
So, it's the chat box.
There is a link coming up in the chat box. Like people who want to see the video,
Yes.
just click the
Okay,
link.
so
and-
this is for everyone as well. So you can also go ahead and see it. It's just that it has a little bit of interview in between. You can skip those sections and just see the performance. So don't take time to see the little bit of interviews of the main character, the cat. You can skip that and quickly see the parts which are the performance and come back.
Right.
Does it work? Yes, no?
I did not get your message.
It's on the chat box. It's a
There-
direct message. Oh, acha, wait. It just went to someone. God knows why.
Yes.
I think now it's for everyone. Yeah.
Now it's good.
Huh.
Yes. I'm done. Like all people are done watching the video. Hello all.
Yes. So let me know when you are done. Okay.
So let's come back.
Just wave a hi on anything that just tells me that you're there. People are still coming. Sachin.
There is another batch like suddenly joined in it.
Okay.
I'm texting you.
Okay. I think it's done.
Is yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, done watching?
Yes,
There is
sir, there's,
Okay.
there's like
Okay.
little more. Show.
Okay. Is the screen share on still?
Yeah, it's the YouTube screen we are seeing now.
Acha. Acha. Okay, I got it. So this is what this is the performance. So again, you understand, so it's a particular perspective in which Bharat Ram Mahotsav has depicted it. There are only clippings. What you possibly could or could not understand is that this was the story of a family of birds, the Pebet family, and how there's a danger from a cat, and you understand small birds, cats, they're always like enemies. Okay, cats feed on small birds. So it's the story, that kind of story, folklore story, and that has been taken to another level of political significations, and how the director builds all of that. That's all the performance is about. I'll not divulge what the plot line is, because if I'm doing that, then we will not be reading the critical writing very intently. So I'll just show you what kind of writings happen on things like this. Okay, so just let me know when you see the screen. It's a Hindu article. Can you see that, Sachin?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is the first kind of writing that I'm trying to introduce you to, is where the person is talking. This is for, as you understand, the newspaper. And there's, as I said, it most often starts with a picture. So this is the picture that the reviewer has chosen to take. However, the photo credit is also there. And then how many paragraphs is this? 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all. So 7-paragraph review about a performance that this person has watched, and what is happening in this. So if just allow me to share my screen to another mode. I think this is where Gmail works, because then whatever screen I am working with, it just goes and shows it. Sure. Is it visible? Looks something different now? Yes. Okay. So this is what I have done to the text, and this is how I read texts, because I read texts critically. I just don't read them. So when this person is doing, look at what the sentences are doing. Not knowing a particular language is no crime, but for Hinsdom Kanahilal, his lack of command in Hindi and English was the reason enough to get him expelled from the National School of Drama in 1968, although the official reasons remain something else. So is this first sentence is about Pebet? No, it's not. It's about the director. But there's a building up of who the director is, what's the background, what were the problems with which this, and if you see in the clip, you would understand there are no dialogues. There was no dialogues. It was shrieks and cries and gibberish. That was the mode of communication. That was the language in the performance, right? So this is a performance where Kanahilal is also breaking down the constraints of language. So anyone can go ahead and watch it, right? So what is happening here in this review is that it begins on a very, very descriptive and broad terms. It begins from a broad term trying to describe about the director, and then talks about the claim. What is the claim? What is the reviewer's claim? Now, any kind of writing that you do, it needs to have a mudda, an agenda, a thesis statement. Now, to that thesis statement, the other terms that go around academia is the thesis statement, your topic, your theme, but then they mean different things. Theme is a very large thing. Thesis statement is something very, very nuanced. You can also call it something that we call as claim, right? So the claim of the reviewer is that expulsion would influence his theater practice, which ensued language and concentrated on conveying ideas through body and gesture. And that is what we saw, right? Language is secondary to body gestures and movements. Okay, so this is how each of the paragraph do their function. Okay, this is what I call as annotating for function. We all annotate when we read texts, right? But every sentence, every word that is there on that piece of writing, what you write or what you read is there for a purpose. So the first paragraph's purpose in this review is history of the director. And in the end of the first paragraph, the reviewer has given the claim that he wants to make, that he's connecting language, body and gesture, and Kanhailal's work with all of that. How does he break it, make it, mend it, whatever he does. So historical background of the play is what he talks about in the second part. So he talks about how Kalakshetra Theatre Group started by this and this person who passed away last October. And that may be the reason why this review is so important, because when someone dies or some eminent personality dies, then a lot of writing happens about that person, right? So maybe that's why the urgency of this review, why this review needs to be written right now and not sometime before. So that historical background of the play is presented in the second paragraph. What happens in the third paragraph? It is based on an old folkside story passed down over several generations in Manipur of a family of extinct pebble birds facing an external threat from a cat. The clever mother, played by Hensnam Kanhalal's wife, Savitri Hensnam. So we get the name of the main protagonist, right? The mother pebble, keeping on distracting the cat through flattery until her children are big enough to take care of themselves. So this was basically the summary of the folklore. Okay, so on which the performance was adapted. But there are changes, which all directors do. You just don't take a story and you depict the way it was. You do lots of changes, and which Kanhailal also did. But the origin of the text reference to the play text is mentioned in one paragraph. So you see how briefly, how succinctly the reviewer is writing, but still keeping the history, the grounding. There is the claim as well. We can see the trace, the claim as well. The historical background of the play is there. The origin and the reference of the play text is also there. And what he does next is he goes on and he quotes someone who is kind of a scholar of Kanhailal's work, right? So he quotes Ostamrosio, who happens to be another student of SAR as well, so a senior of mine. So he goes on because he has interviewed. Possibly when he was writing this review, he went ahead and interviewed different people, scholars, director not possible, he's dead. So maybe Savitri, the actors. So he's chosen the scholar's comment. Now, what happens when you quote something? In critical writing, we say you use quotes as evidences. Now, you have a claim. What is the claim? The claim is that language through a body and a gestural language is important for Kanhailal's work. That's the claim, right? To substantiate that, what does he do? He moves on and he uses these quotes by Rosio, where Rosio is talking about Kanhailal twisted the folktale a bit to give a contemporary political meaning. It has been constantly evolving from time it was first staged. He's commenting mainly on the indoctrination of the Hindu culture in Manipur and blah, blah, blah. So whatever, that's not needed. But this is where it becomes important. When theater persons from Africa came to watch, they could also relate to the themes of colonization and divide and rule. So because there's no language, there is no barrier of language as well. There is no problem to understand the play text, the performance, because there is no language operative. It's gibberish and shrieks and cries and shrills and body gestures and body language, right? So because there is no barrier of language, that's why even people who do not have any Indian origin, any Indian connections can still make sense. So what was the claim of the reviewer? Language and body gesture. And I'm very sure when the reviewer went ahead and spoke to Rosio, they were not just talking about this. They spoke about lots of other things as well. But the reviewer chose this particular sentence because this substantiates the claim of how language is important in body language and gesture is important in Kanhailal's dramaturgy, right? So you will have a lot of things in your kitty, but what to select as evidence is your call. And you have to do it very, very cleverly and intelligently, right? So next he goes on to say, he says Kanhailal has been constantly taking a path different from nationalist theatre or idea of theatre. Now this is where criticism moves away from review. Now because this is a review and there is no particular stake of this reviewer, he goes on to tell another claim, but not in his own voice, in the voice of Rosio, because he just wants to play safe. It's like to say that taking a path different from nationalist idea of theatre might not work for some people. So he's just playing it safe. He doesn't say that this is what I say, but this is what Rosio is saying. But do you think when Rosio writes the review, he will write it in such safe distance? He won't possibly. Now, then it will become a criticism in his own voice, and there will be a lot of more subjectivity. This piece of writing is still wielding at the level of objective, trying to keep a safe distance, give an honest opinion, but still keep a safe distance, not going to within the problematics and politics of the performance. And as you understand, when it's talking about indoctrination of Hindu culture in Manipur and its colonization over the Meitei identity, it is a bomb performance, right? It has the potential to explode if people write about it more, if people take it more. There could be a lot of revolutionary, reactionary responses to it. So the content of the performance is definitely very, very, worthy to become a hot topic of protest and discussion. So he's just trying to play safe. He doesn't say that this is my opinion. It's in the voice of Rosio. So again, another comment from Rosio, a quote. So whenever in your writing you use quotes, remember that quotes just don't stand to show your erudition. They are neither there just to show that, okay, I have read that text and so I am forced to use something from that text here. Quotes are always working as evidence to your claim. That's how you write arguments for your any kind of writing. And this just doesn't apply to only performance kind of writing. But even when you're writing on or about performances, you need to understand that if you're trying to make argumentation, then you will have to keep certain points which work as grounding, the background, which we see even our reviewer doing it, right? So he starts on a very common note. He gives us the background of the play before the background of the folklore. So all this was building up. You don't start a movie from the climax, right? So you first build up to that climax. So this is the building up of the writing. So you build up and then the claim has already been cursed. Like it's a small claim. And I'll show you how this performance review is different from performance analysis, academic performance analysis, or academic performance criticism that we do, and how detailed and how complicated academic writing can be vis-a-vis to this. And when I say complicated, I'm not saying it in the negative sense. I'm saying it's complicated in the sense a lot of complex ideas are pushed into that kind of writing, which will somewhat not be in. And we understand this is a newspaper writing. You can't write too much of complex ideas because the layman is reading it. So you will have to keep the audience in mind. So keeping that audience in mind, this is the perfect kind of writing that should be published. And that is what it's doing, keeping a safe distance, keeping the ideas somewhat loose and open. And yes, still talking about a certain angle of the performance, not talking about everything because that's not possible. To make your choices. How you would make your choices, what are the good choices, what choices to be careful about, I'll talk about them in a while. So he goes on to say that there's another quote which again talks about, and I've quoted them in green to show you so that you don't miss them out. Minimal props, communicating through body language, acting methodology. So all of this, but who is saying it? Rosio is saying it. Usham Rosio is saying it. So he's using the quotes of Rosio to substantiate a claim that he has made, right? Now, see, now this is something that happens and you will see it in many kinds of writing. You know intertextuality. I think you've heard about this term. So intertextuality is when you start referring to texts beyond the text that is what you are immersed in right now, and anecdotal entries or connections to other texts, other things beyond the performance per se. Okay, so see in the last paragraph what is happening. Connection to other performances by the same author. So there's another play by Kanhailal, which is Draupadi, and there also there's a similar kind of thing happens where Savitri, his wife, his fantastic wife, a fantastic performer. So she comes in and she plays a role of Draupadi, where she's enacting this rape scene, and it's very, very powerful. So what this reviewer does is bringing in Savitri to the fore and connecting it with another performance where she has given stellar performance, and trying to share that what happens and what is the general strategy or the political intention with which Kanhailal's performances operate. So that's a larger, so began with a large theme, somewhat a broader area, narrowed it down to a very, very slight claim, and just one claim, not many, not that, okay, language pe kaam ho raha hai. There's also a work with political intervention. There's a lot of cultural indoctrination. It's not that he is saying all of that. He's taking the help of quotes to substantiate and claim, and then think in visually, it will look like a pillar. So with a top heavy and a low heavy. So not heavy, but broad. So top broad, low broad, in the middle is kind of a little streamlined. So not ending, this is not the kind of ending that you are expected to do in your academic reviews, academic production reviews or performance reviews or academic analyses that you write, because it just suddenly opens up. Like it just leaves things there and just doesn't take it anything further, right? So a nude protest by the mothers of Manipur in front of army brought back memories of the play, and here Draupadi, not Pebet, with those who criticized him, praising him for his prophetic take. So basically he's foretelling in a performance things that's going to happen later on in the real world. So that's why his prophetic take. So this is a kind of writing about performances for newspapers, for a larger audience, somewhat objective, and keeping a safe distance, using voices of others to tell what the reviewer is trying to tell. Okay, so any questions about this kind of writing, particularly to the text that I just spoke about? If you don't have, I'll move on to the next one, but please, if you have any questions, you can raise them now. Come on, class. Is it not interesting? If students don't talk, that's the feedback I take for myself, is that I am too boring or complicated or inarticulate. Did you understand what I'll share these readings with you? Okay, that's one thing. So I will share these readings with you. The reason why I did not share before the class, I was thinking for 2 days, should I share it with Sachin so that you get a time to read it? But then I thought it will burden you up.
No,
And
it
some
is
people will read.
interesting.
Yeah, so some people will come reading it, some people will not come reading it, and that will create a kind of a problem in the class. And because I'm not your regular teacher, I don't want to get into all those kinds of problems. So I will share both these readings with you. You can go back. So you understand that writing does not happen without a narrative. Just like a performance has a story, has an argument, has a beginning, has a middle and an end, your writing also has a beginning, a middle and an end. Right? So the beginning starts in this particular review that I showed you. The beginning was somewhat broad, boiling it down to a particular claim, using 2 quotes to substantiate that claim, and then again broadening it up and also connecting it with the text outside the text in question. So narrative clear for this one? Now let's see what happens on the same kind of text when someone writes on it for academic purpose. And when I say academic, it's not that I'm trying to be snobbish, that, oh, academics are great. No, nothing like that. Sometimes academics do write text which makes no sense to anyone except the person writing. We are not aiming for that kind of writing, but I'll show you something, kind of writing which is very understandable, yet published in the EPW. Now you understand what EPW is. It's a journal which goes ahead and publishes academic articles. So taken seriously by people in academics. That's what I would say. What is academic and non-academic? Taken seriously by people in academia, the people in the discipline. So disciplinary people take it seriously when it is academic piece of writing. Now this kind of writing will not be taken seriously. A newspaper review written in such manner, I'm not saying all newspaper reviews are such loose. You will find sometimes newspaper reviews which are very, very particular, very sharp. Okay, so this kind of newspaper review possibly will not find much confidence in the academic disciplinary space. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share the next one with you. Just let me know when you stop sharing. Share again. Okay. So this again, as I said, that's how I read. So this is a text again. Barucha is talking. It's okay. I'll show you something before this. Acha, theek hai, pehle hi kar lete. So this is. I'll show you the length of the passage first. Can you see all of you? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So this is the length of the essay, and as I think it's somewhat around 8 pages, quite long, quite extensive. Not just talks about Pebet, but about other performances also, and which definitely the title also tells us. It's not. It never promises it's going to be only about Pebet. It is about the politics of indigenous theatre, Kanhailan in Manipur, right? So just Pebet can be just one of the performance that he's talking about, right? So in the larger scheme of things, this is when I was starting. If I could have time to read the entire essay with you, then I would have gone from one bit to one bit. But to make you understand that all essays do start with a kind of a grounding and a claim. So Rustam Barucha's claim in this entire essay is the essay attempts to demystify the ethos of otherness by examining a culture that is generally considered exotic, distant, and perhaps threatening. The culture in question here is Manipur, and the artist whose work is examined is Kanhailal, who has been active in theatre for over 30 years. So we can see a claim and also a kind of a case study. What is the case study of that claim? Now that particular sentence, the essay attempts still threatening, is not something that will only be particular to Kanhailal. There are many other directors and performers who are also doing it. But Barucha is not interested in that. He's saying that I'll take the case study of a particular drama persona, Kanhailal, and I'm going to look at his work and substantiate my claim. So in the larger scheme of things, this essay has a lot of other claims as well, but I'm not going into it. I'm quickly going to the section where he talks about Pebet particularly. Okay, so can I have someone to read this? The first paragraph, quickly.
Aishwarya, you want to read?
Yes, sir, I can do it.
So from having provided
some background to the history and resurgence of Meitei identity identity in Manipur, I would like to now focus on Pebet, 1975, one of the most significant productions in Kanhaiyalal's repertoire that exemplifies the poetics of oppression. Following a series of plays exploring and subverting indigenous folk material, Pebbit is part of the tradition of Fungavari or fireside stories which are told to Manipuri children by their grandmothers. It is a folk tale deeply entrenched in the psyche of the people. Kanhaiyalal's decision to use this story to comment on the political and cultural indoctrination of his time must be regarded as a shrewd dramaturgical strategy. There is no stronger way of igniting consciousness in theatre than by subverting the familiar.
Okay.
Next
So,
one.
yeah, you can go ahead and read it. Okay, let's quickly read it.
Okay,
first.
what is Pebbit? A bird smaller than a sparrow, which has not been seen in many years. It could be an extinct species. In the story, Mother Pebbit guards her brood by circumventing the predatory attention of the cat. She flatters and boosts his ego till the children are ready to protect themselves. Once they are grown up, she resists the cat, who captures the youngest in her brood. Ultimately, through a clever strategy, the mother manages to trick the cat into freeing her child. The Pebbits are finally united as the cat disappears from their lives, temporarily defeated.
Great. Go ahead. In Kanhaiyalal's play.
In Kanhaiyalal's play, the first and last parts of the story are left more or less intact. Indeed, the next few exchanges of dialogue between Mother Pebbit and the cat are borrowed verbatim from the oral traditions of the story. Where Kanhaiyalal breaks with the tradition of Pebbit is in the middle of his production after the youngest child has been captured. Here he develops a fantasy sequence in which all the Pebbit children are captured, indoctrinated, tortured, and then set against one another. It is in this section that the politics of the play is most keenly felt before the happy end, which merely echoes the folk tale with no irony whatsoever.
Continue.
Through
If someone else wants to read, Aishwarya has been reading for a while.
Ma'am, no, it's okay.
Okay, then continue.
Though Pebbit has the deceptive innocence of a children's theatre piece, any illusion of frivolity is destroyed as the cat emerges as a satirist, without spelling out the character's interpretation, so much so that a non-Manipuri audience could accept it as theatrical. Kanhaiyalal's cat is clearly Vaishnavite in his rhetoric and tactics. The most savage irony of this indoctrination occurs when he brainwashes the Pebbit children with the famous words from the Sanskrit shloka, Janani Janmabhumishya
Sargvadapi Garyasi.
Yeah. Mother and motherland are greater than heaven. Using these Sanskrit words as weapons, the Pebbit children turn on their mother and stone her pitilessly. It is a profoundly disturbing moment precisely because of the rhetoric
which sustains
it. Not only was Pebbit considered anti-Hindu in its early productions, it was also dismissed as anti-Indian. To an extent, this criticism is the consequence of misreading Kanhaiyalal's attitude to Janmabhoomi. At no point does the play attack the idea of patriotism or love for one's motherland. What Kanhaiyalal is questioning are the cultural formations through which concepts of patriotism and loyalty are imposed. In the name of Janmabhoomi and not Ima Lai Park, which is the Manipuri word for motherland. The cat uses his language and strategy to make the Pebbits abuse their own mother. 1 second. The real fear of Mother Pebbit is not that her children will be eaten by the cat, but rather that they will be converted to cat culture. This ambivalence is countered by a combination of grief and rage. After using the words of Janani Janmabhumishya as weapons, one of the children begin to sing the shloka with an abandon of emotion. Indeed, the actress never fails to cry as she submits to the depths of the line, which is later picked up by Mother Pebbit and transformed into a dirge. As rendered by Savitri, Kanhaiyalal's gifted wife actress, this lament transcends music as it becomes a state of possession, maddened grief interspersed with wails and flailing hands. To counter this grief, Kanhaiyalal inserts a gesture that is devastating in its sheer meekness. The children line up and lick the cat's arse in mute obedience. This passivity is disrupted when one of the sons bites the arse instead of licking it. This is one of the few moments of resistance in the play that inevitably leads to torture and eventual freedom.
Thank you so much, Aishwarya. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. So now that you've read it, does this reading, this writing, this kind of writing and this kind of detailed criticism, in what ways are it different from the other thing on Pebbit that I showed you, other writing that I showed you? Now you give me pointers.
Ma'am, it's more detailed and informative.
Very good. Next.
And he brings out even the anti-Indian and anti-Hindu parts in a more clear way, which wasn't done in the newspaper.
Exactly, exactly. That safe distance that the reviewer was taking with the help of Rosio, not just spelling out in his own voice, but here, Bharucha is not keeping that safe distance anymore. When he wants to say something that this is not, people are just misreading Kanhailal's attitude to Janmabhoomi. He goes ahead and says it. He does not go ahead and take the quote of someone else to kind of camouflage his words anyway, right? So that's it tends to move from the parameter of objectivity to slightly subjective, right? Okay, agreed. Any other pointers? You can take the help of the markings that I have done. And just to give you a color coding, this is my color coding for most of my readings. Whenever I am marking a claim, I use the yellow. For groundings, I use a sort of a pink. For evidences, I use a green. And for transition sentences or transition words, I use blue. Okay. And this is the reason, the reason why I use this color coding is no writing happens without these elements of writing. To build a story with an argument, you need to have these. So whenever you're reading, if you're annotating your text, trying to figure out where is the claim, where is the grounding, where is the background, where is the discussion that leads up to the claim, where is the evidence? And when I say evidence, it could be quotes from other people, other texts, other books, other plays. It could also be data, evidence as in what data is available on the ground. If you're doing ethnographic work on a performance, none of you spoke about it, but I was thinking this would come up. Rituals are also performances, right? And my work in my PhD has been heavily ritual driven. So when you work in the field and you're looking at festivals, right, ritual performances, then you're actually dealing with real people. There is no text per se. The text can just get forgotten about, right? What you see, it's so visceral, it's so sensorial that everything else just goes away. So that field data becomes evidence. What people say, what actors are saying, what they're feeling, what you see, what your audience tells you becomes evidence. Okay, so that becomes evidence, and that for me, the color coding, again, my color coding. You like red, blue, burgundy, use any color you want. This is my color coding, and just introducing you so that you know why this text looks heavily colored. And transitions are very, very important. For coherence of a text, you need to keep transitions. So just to take you a little up here in the text, you will see that Bharucha is also using transitions a lot. So this is the introductory paragraph. But after this, look at this. This is the word now, barely 4 decades after independence. What does this word now do? It's basically linking the second paragraph with the first. It is said something naively at the times, knowingly, we have connived in our own capitulation of material and essentially short-term gains. So he was talking about something, and to connect the next sentence with the earlier one he's using now. Similarly, you will also have to use transition words, ideas, and sentences in your own writing. Now let's go to the paragraph that Aishwarya beautifully read for us. So the first paragraph, and remember, every paragraph has an agenda. Every paragraph has a reason why you're writing. There is a topic, concern of a paragraph. And to punch a paragraph with a lot of ideas, you're just kind of pushing too much. So whenever why do we need paragraphs? Have you ever asked this basic question? Why do you need paragraphs? Just to make it visually good? I don't think so. Whenever you're shifting your ideas from one point to the next, you are expected to make a paragraph, right? So every paragraph will have a theme, a core concept, a core idea that you're trying to broaden up. So as you can see, every paragraph for me has a purpose. The first paragraph was working as an introduction. The second paragraph was a summary of what the folklore was. The third paragraph is a description of what the production was and how it has moved away from the folklore. Okay. The fourth paragraph is an analysis, more to say. However, there are interspersed with claims. As you can see, there are yellow markers, and I'll say you why I consider them claims. Okay. And then there are other paragraphs which move on to do analysis and description, analysis and description. Finally, there is a reference to the actor, Savitri Kanhailal's reference is there. And finally, open claim connecting to the larger text. So you generally don't end your, had this piece been a text of itself. It's not part of a larger text, but it is a text in itself. And I'll show you where Bharucha does this. And this is very interesting to see when you see your own. Bharucha has been my professor. Okay, so to see him using a certain paragraph in an academic writing and that same paragraph going and taking up in a blog writing, it's like fascinating. Oh my God, this is what professors also do. So you've written something and it's written so well, you use it everywhere, right? So I'll show you, this is what Bharucha is writing and what is the year. I'll just go scroll down to the first page and tell you it's something 1991. Okay, so it's written this in 1991, not written, maybe written even earlier, getting it published in 1991. And this is what he writes. So as you understand by now, with the color coding, having provided some background to the history, blah, 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 that's the background, the building up of the suspense, if I can say, if performances have suspenses, right? Writing also has suspenses. Your writing should be suspense driven. It should have a persuasion. It should have a lot of suspense and anxiety, building up of that anxiety, living, like I'm just saying, opening up and relieving of that anxiety, and finally kind of satisfying your intention of the writing. Okay, so there is a building up, there's a background coming in, and then there's a claim. What is the claim in this particular paragraph, in this particular section of Pebble that I have I'm just making you close read a certain section. I'm not making you read the entire thing. So what is the claim? Kanhailal's decision to use the story to comment on the political and cultural indoctrination of his time must be regarded as a shrewd dramaturgical strategy. Dramaturgical strategy is what Bharucha is trying to push. What is the dramaturgical strategy? There is no stronger way of igniting consciousness in theater than by subverting the familiar. And what is the familiar? Familiar is the folklore, a folklore that grandmothers told their children forever in Manipur. That's familiar. That's folklore. But what is Kanhailal doing? Kanhailal is converting, twisting, turning that familiar to the unfamiliar. And when does he does that? Where does he move away from the what is existing? In Kanhailal's play, the first and the last parts of the story are left more or less intact. So you see, even when Bharucha is describing things, he's actually giving us cues about how the performance works. He's telling us where the performance is faithful to the original story and where the performance is moving away from the original story. So in the first and the last part, yes, folklore story kept intact. Where does it move away? Indeed, the few exchanges of dialogues between the mother Pebble and the cat is borrowed verbatim from the tradition of the story. Whatever was there in the folklore, similarly, it has been taken up in the story. But where does he move away? He moves away in the middle of his production after the youngest child has been captured by the cat. Here he develops a fantasy sequence in which all the Pebble children are captured, indoctrinated, tortured, and then set against one another. In this section, the politics of the play is most keenly felt. So, Bharucha, that is the claim. Politics is there. Then this is not a naive, innocent, bachcho ka khel. This is not a children's thing going on. So it might be using, you always, bishop's tales and Bengalis have Thakurmar Jhuli and all the folklores, animals play a big part in it, right? Children's tales, animals play a big part in it. The crow and the tortoise and the hare, the crow story, the whatever. So all kinds of stories have animals. So similarly, there is a certain childlike, frivolous element in it, but the performance that Kanhailal stages just doesn't stay at the level of children anymore. There's a lot of politics embedded in the performance that supersedes this childlike flavor of the folklore. That is what his point is, and he's using the descriptions from the performance to build this argument. Okay, so Kanhailal's cat is clearly Vaishnavite in his rhetoric and tactics. I have a few pictures I'll share with you if time permits at the end, where you see how the cat is just not a cat, but he's just not, he is very Vaishnavite. He has this rosary beads that he keeps on doing this, and he takes on narrating Sanskrit sloks, which he teaches the Pebble kids at a certain point of time. And it almost like they refuse to acknowledge their own mother with that new knowledge. So that's the kind of brainwashing that this cat does. Okay, with the kind of the Vaishnavite rhetoric and tactics. And when you say Vaishnavite, it is Hindu indoctrination on a indigenous community. You understand how Bharucha is actually going back to the concept of politics of indigenous theatre. So using this text to go back to politics of indigenous theatre. And then he goes on to say this is from the performance, which actually he is not telling us the entire story. So when you're asked to write performance reviews, my dear, please don't ever just write the plot of the play. Okay. That, yes, you have a question, Aishwarya?
Yes, ma'am. That's so could you scroll a little on top? Yeah, you told about not giving away the plot, but then doesn't like the ending of the paragraph tell us about the sun biting the arse instead of licking it? So isn't that giving away of the plot? Like
no, that is definitely giving. This is where you have to understand, Aishwarya. The intention of this writing is not to make people go and see Pebble. The intention of this writing is something else. Bharucha has an agenda to make a larger argument about the politics of Hindu indoctrination in India on indigenous communities, right? That's the larger narrative he has. So for that, this sequence is playing well. There is no one kind of writing which will be okay for everyone. Okay, you can't, I do understand restaurants have that common gravy that they give for everyone. Unfortunately, for writing, we can't do that. We can't have a prepared common gravy that masala paneer, masala chicken, masala fish, masala kuch bhi de do, so it will be same. It will work and function, have its same function. No, that does not happen. So very rightly pointed out, it is giving out everything. Samne bhi bol diya, ant bhi bol diya. The beginning and the end, everything is told. Then what is there? What is there? Why do I need to read it? I will still read it because Bharucha is doing some critical analysis, some deep reading of the play and the performance, the way the body gestures are opening up, the way the textual, the deviations of the director, where the director moves away from the folkloric text, where he builds this fantasy sequence. Now this sequence where everyone is kidnapped and then they are indoctrinated and they are told to hate their mothers, this is something Kanhailal does. This is not part of the original story. This is what his invention and imagination is. And Bharucha is critiquing it, is understanding, trying to understand it to substantiate his larger claim. It is profoundly disturbing precisely because of its rhetoric. Now that rhetoric of the Janami Janmabhumi Sargadapi Garyasi is a rhetoric that keeps on coming. And it almost, from my experience of the performance, I would say it at a certain point of time, it almost becomes like that. When someone dies, you've heard this thing that people say, Ram Ram, and all of that. Like, what is the chant that they generally do?
Ram Nam Satya.
Ram Nam Satya, Ram Nam Satya. So initially it had a very emotional feeling, but how many people do you actually see wailing and crying when they go on with that ritual? Not many really, maybe one or two, the very near and dear ones. The rest, they keep on chanting it with a lack of emotional connection, right? So that's when it becomes a dirge. When you keep on saying something over and over and over again without that emotional connect, and that is the level to which this particular statement in the performance goes up to. Okay, otherwise gibberish performance, no language, but the only language that's available is some Sanskrit slokas. And who brings it to the table? The cat. The cat is trying to teach the Pebet kids all of this. Okay, so this is how the argument of the entire essay is built up, and my notations would actually have revealed to you how Bharucha is also connecting with the outside text. See, Bharucha is also telling us how Pebet has been received by earlier critics. So not only Pebet considered anti-Hindu in his earlier productions, it is also dismissed as anti-Indian. So he's just not critiquing Kanhailal and Pebet, but he's also going on to say why I don't agree with the other criticism that exists on Pebet. And he's saying that it is a misinterpretation of Kanhailal's attitude to Janmabhoomi. And this is a claim. He does not stop at the claim. He uses an evidence. Look at the next sentence. At no point does the play attack the idea of patriotism or love for one's motherland. Right? So whenever you're pushing for a claim, there needs to come an evidence that you say. So basically, it's all a matter like a court case. If you say someone's innocent, you will have to prove why you say it's innocent. If you say someone's guilty, you will have to say why. You will have to prove. And why do you prove? Will you dig your earth and bring down something from the sky? No. Everything is there in the text. And for you, as performance scholars, your performance is your text. Your production is your text. What you see on the stage or not on the stage, if it's not on proscenium, it's on street, it's on a village, in a village performance, it's in a festival. What you see, the body of the actor is your text. The voice is the text, the stage, the lighting, everything is a text for you. So you will have to tweak and find evidences within those parameters. Now you just don't operate on text and books, right? So you'll have to figure out from that. So I hope you understand how different kinds of critical writing operates and exists even in the domain of performance writing, right? So you will have something which is loose and open and superficial. You will have something which is deep. And now let me show you, consider these two paragraphs, okay? Starting from following the series of plays, blah, blah, blah. Pebet is part of a tradition of Fungawari. And then this paragraph, what is Pebet? And then this paragraph in Kanhailal's play, right? This is part of an EPW article. Now I'll show you what Bharucha has done. And this is fantastic. These are revelations for us. Can you see the screen? Yes. Now this is a blog. Okay, a blog for a journal that exists. Now look at these sentences.
We can see the Bharucha's EPW article only. I cannot see
acha, you can still see the EPW article. Okay, share screen. Okay, can you see this now? Okay, yeah. So see, this is a English Khasi journal. And I had brought your attention to the 3 paragraphs that Bharucha wrote in that EPW. Now read these paragraphs. Barucha, Pebet is part of the repertoire of the fire stories which were told by Manipuri children by their grandmothers, blah, 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 blah. Subverting the familiar. Sounds familiar? What is Pebet? It's a small bird and a parrot. Sounds familiar? The third paragraph. In Kanhailala's play, the first and the last parts of the story. Sounds familiar? We have read this. But where was it? It was in an EPW article. And now where is it? It is in a blog. But Aishwarya, as I said, things have to change. The change is coming. This is where it changes. So it is just those 3 paragraphs which made sense, still made sense in the blog, and it stays because it's just the topic telling us about the grounding, it's telling us about the folklore, and it also tells us about how Kanhailal has shifted from the folklore to the own production, his own adaptation of the folklore. Till there, things can stay similar, but the similarity ends there. Now, this is a criticism in its own right because he is not now talking about any other theme. Look at the title, Pebet, a play by late Hansdam Kanhailal. So that means we are not looking at any particular theme. We are just looking at Pebet in its own right. And we want to know what the performance is all about. So the last 3 paragraphs, the new paragraphs in this, and this is written in 2016. When was that performance, that writing written? It was in 1991, I think, 1991. So something that was part in the 1991 text figures again anew with new force in a 2016 text, and then takes on new thesis statements, new arguments. Now look, what is the new argument here? There are, whenever you see lines like these which are in quotes and which are in block marks, it just simply means that they are quotations of someone. Now again, this is in a blog, so you don't need to tell where these quotations come from. But unfortunately, in academic writing, you just can't go ahead and keep quotations and leave them there. You will have to say kisne bola, kisko bola, kab bola, and all of those questions. This is a blog, so that loose writing is okay. You can do that loose writing. So there are 2 quotes, and see, the theme is there. So building up. So it's almost like a movie. Pehle introduction bol diya, story thoda bol diya, and all of that happening. And then, though flexibility may not be the militant value of the political perspective, it is perhaps the strongest defense that any theater worker has against the pressures and manipulations of time. So many revolutionary productions become reactionary in no time. So now, Barucha himself has moved from his own opinion he had about Hansdam Kanhailal's work, where he at one time of thought that he thought that Kanhailal's works were revolutionary. He's slowly moving. His own opinion has changed, and he's voicing that in this new blog that is written almost like 15 years apart, right? So this is how your writing changes, even on the same performance. Critical writing is not something constant, just as your productions are ephemeral, your writing on productions also are ephemeral. It cannot be constant. And we've seen it. We've seen it, Rustam Barucha doing it, right? So I hope that's right. Okay, so that's one of the things. Sachin, how much time do I have? So I'll just quickly run through the final takeaways of today's session. Do I have around 15, 20 minutes?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Can I take till 10:45 is okay? 15 minutes are okay for you to wind up and go to the next session?
No, this is fine. 10:45 to
okay, 10:45. I'll keep a target for till 10:45 for me. Okay. Okay. Again, I think the screen will not be visible. Just hold on. Let me stop and select. Okay, so now that we have seen different kinds of complexities of performance writing, okay, now let us understand that sometimes you don't need to think too much. You're just in your first year and you will be given an assignment by your teacher. Okay, so in that situation, how to deal with it? Now I have shown you an EPW article. Does it mean I'm expecting you to write an EPW article? Not at all. Okay, so if you can write anything close to what that newspaper, the first newspaper article that I gave you, that would be marvelous. That would give you an A+ in your first grade, I think. Okay, first assignment. So that's great. Good start. So you will slowly move up in your writing complexity, and that will happen over the course of time. That's a process. So the product will eventually arrive. So when you are experiencing something as a performer, as a critique, please understand you're doing a tough job. It's a difficult task because you're not just an audience who's just seeping in all the enjoyment and the experience of the performance. You are experiencing it as along with it, you're also critiquing it. So it is a tough task. I will nowhere be able to be in a position to boil it down and make it easy for you. Okay, it is a tough task. You will have to take notes. You will have to write down short references that you are writing all like while watching only. Sometimes you might want to jot down points. Sometimes you want to just performance finish, take 10-20 minutes, quickly sit down and jot whatever you saw in the performance. Talk to your friends, discuss, so that it keeps in your memory. All these tropes, memory tropes you can use. But a review assignment which is possibly one of the first performance criticism writing that you would have to do, would require you to analyze something from an objective point of view. So initially, we don't expect you that you suddenly start writing, which is very, very honest, scathing, strong, very opinionated. You slowly arrive there. So at the beginning, it's okay to start with an objective manner of where you talk about the relative success or failure of a given production, because that's the basic level of judgment all of us can pass. We can see a production and we can say, ha, ye theek tha, ye kharab tha. Right? So that's the level one. So let's just take that at that point that yes, there is also a scope of just going out and saying you're liking or disliking about a performance in a review. You can do that. You can write about it, but write it in a way that you do not go ahead and sound partial. You don't go ahead and sound that you are prejudiced. To me, that's a claim. And I have no problems with claims till the point you can substantiate with evidences. You can tell me this is where your expectations of the performance were not met, because you read something and then you were expecting something, or you've seen other productions and you were expecting something, or the audience or the director set up certain expectations in the beginning of the performance which were not lived through or which were not satisfied by the end of it. So these are the different levels of analysis of success or failure of production that you can go ahead and do. The other thing is you are expected to give a brief summary of the performance, but remember it is thematic summary. Please don't go ahead and give a storyline, because that's one of the bad ways of writing a review. Stories are not something that performance reviews. You've seen an example, the first one that I showed you. There was no story. There was just a simple reference ki haan Pebet ka story kya tha. What was the folk tale? How is Kanhailal moving away from the folk tale? Nowhere is the entire story given. That's called a summary. You are allowed to give a summary, and that giving of a summary is for the intention of pumping up your argument. You're not telling the summary because I have nothing else to write. You're telling the summary because the summary has a role to play in your argument. Okay, so use it wisely. So your job is to describe the production accurately and render a judgment of value depending on the rationality. You have to be logical in whatever value you pass, whether it's good or bad, up to you, but you have to be a little rational. Now, it is when it comes to performance criticism, you are expected to go into a little bit of detail. And I'm sure you will get to know about these components of performance very, very soon, unless you're a big part. Set plays a big part. Directorial intervention and decisions may play a big part. How actors take on that embodiment also plays a big part. So taking on to the little nuances, you can go. And the moment you start doing it, it just doesn't stay a review, which is worthy in a newspaper. It becomes more and more deep. Again, I said newspapers reviews can also be very, very deep and critical. So there is no way I can say all newspaper reviews are bad and superficial. There are good newspaper articles as well. And it's a very good starter. So if you are performance students and you want to get into a habit of performance analysis, this is a very good starter. Is whenever you're seeing a performance production, go ahead and write about it, analyzes, criticizes, and send to a newspaper and get it published. So it also just keeps on adding to your amount of writing, and you will get into, by the time you end your 3 or 4 years in your grad school, wow, you have more productions than I'll ever have in my life. So that's great. That's a great way to start. And it's also documents your journey as an audience. It's also a wonderful way to document your journey as a performance audience. And because you're performance studies, scholars or performers yourself, this always helps. So you will also be able to see your journey as an audience, how you perceive, how you change over the years. So use everything to support your thesis. Don't just be impressionist and merely negative. The problem with the word is things about someone. Okay, so don't just boil down the word criticism to the negativity of it. Criticism is something where you study, you analyze, you unpack, you break, you look into the nuances, the fractures, the fragments of it, and then render a judgment which is rational, logical, and taken by most people because it is credible and impartial. Right? Because you're free from judgment, you're free from personal narratives, you're free from your personal stigmas. People will take your view, your value judgment as credible. Okay, so that's where performance criticism or analysis moves apart from the mere superficial review. Now, before you go to see performances, and now I'm getting into the mechanics of writing. Okay, so what are the tools you have? Abhi to ho gaya, haan, ye hai, wo hai. Lekin likhe kya? Right? How to go ahead and do it. So if you know that you are going to see a production where a play text already exists, and sometimes what happens in classes, we do the play text before, and then your teacher goes and takes you to see a performance of that play text. If it's something like that, and you're expected to write a review of it, you set the right expectations, make the right connections, and see where there are diversions in the performance. Because if you are not aware with the original, then it's very difficult to compare with the new adaptation of it. So if there are play texts available, this is your extra work that you will have to do before you start writing any kind of performance critical analysis. Now you pick and choose what, now while you read the text, you can pick and choose, oh wow, this sequence looks great. I would like to see and compare how this sequence plays on stage. So you can maybe keep that point in mind, and you are looking for that moment in the performance. And when that moment arrives, you can make an analysis, like whether the director does a good job or just skims through it or just edits it out, director's cut. And you are absolutely dejected. Oh my God, I was looking for this sequence and the director's just cut it. It happens sometimes in performances. So this is the space where you voice those kinds of opinions about. And this is an okay space. These opinions do need to come out in your writing. So this is what it is. Attending the performance. When you are attending the performance, again, just in the previous slide, I told you, keep your expectations, this, that. Now I'm just countering myself. And I'm saying, reading kiya, expectations set kiya, all of that till there, it's okay. But the moment you start what the director has to offer. Because if you have closed your mind to something that was good and whatever I'm going to see, I'm only going to see kya galat kiya, then your performance review is bound to be lopsided, right? So the moment you sit down for a performance to experience it, make yourself open and available to all the things that are coming to you. Okay, there will be deviations, there will be adaptations. That is what the transformation from the text of the page to the stage, that is where it happens. Deviations are a norm. It is not an exception. That's the norm. Deviations will be there. Your task is to ask why the deviation and how does that deviation affect the larger intention of the performance. Has the intention changed? Has the playwright's intention was something and then the director's intention is something else? You can ask these questions. For example, I'll just like random questions. More questions can be there in your kitty just to help you with building these questions. What is the choice of costume? Why that choice of costume? Why that stage? If there was originally a proscenium stage and the director has chosen a proscenium mein nahi karna hai, I'll do it on a street. So the stage changes. Now with that stage change, what are the restrictions that come in? What are the extra points that come in? What are the benefits that come in? So the performers deliver their lines. How do they deliver it? What are the special effects used? Lighting, sound, audience participation, machinery, all the components of performance that make a performance is being used. Professional, amateurs, or students who are performing it. What kind of expertise do they bring onto the table? What is the script requirement? Do they actually satisfy that requirement or not? Right? So all of this is there. Now, you have seen you prepared yourself before the performance, you've seen the performance and you come back and you want to write about it. Now I have showed you the specimen before and you have seen that there was a structure. So you have to structure your writing in this manner. There will be an introduction, there will be a thesis statement and a summary, then the body of the paper or the assignment that you have, which is the review basically, where you're also talking about the description. And after certain description, don't just leave there. This is where the problem arises, is that we do a description and leave the description there itself. We could not go ahead and explain the description. Do not think your audience, your readers are wise enough they can make meaning of the description. That is a problem, a faux pas that we as writers do, that we think, ye padh lenge to samajh lenge. Nahi samajhte. That's the problem. When people read, they can read stuff, they can read the same sentence. I and you can read the same sentence and make out absolutely two different things, two different meanings. So just to leave a description naked there on your text is a great problem. So interpret it. Take meaning out of it. Closely read that description for your readers and tell why that description is important here. If I've told you a little section of the sequence, then why was that sequence? Does it add to my thesis statement, the claim that I had made in the beginning? Okay. And finally, you've done all of that, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe thrice, depending on your word limit. Always stay within word limits in your assignments. Okay. So that is why, how much of description, how many claims to make? Don't try to be super ambitious. Not possible. You will not be able to write everything in one assignment or everything in one paper. Keep in your mind, there'll be lots of questions that are juggling in your mind. Pick and select the most important ones. A good number is 3. If you're really confused, if you don't want to go with anything more, anything less, 3 are good numbers. A kind of a paragraph which has about a kind of a nestled claim of 3 arguments. Great starter. So 3 claims you have made. Every claim that you have made would possibly need a description and an evidencing. So the description, analyzing, evidencing, all of that happens 3 times in 3 paragraphs. Summary and conclusion, done. That's your assignment. That's how you write. So to begin with, again, when I give you a structure, don't think that this is the structure that exists. This is a structure that I have devised after reading so many things. And once you ace this structure, you are free to go and break it loose and say, I'll not write the way Paulmi ma'am told me to write. Go great, go ahead and do it. That's okay. But pehle structure seekh lo, usko master kar lo, and then go ahead and break. That's not a problem. Okay, so as beginners, we'll try to keep this a little formatted, because then what happens is the argument, the narrative is very important. Please remember, you're writing about performance, so your writing should also be similarly performative. And if you have to do it, you will have to keep the narrative alive, the suspense alive. Okay, so the introduction, Again, just to reshuffle in your minds, what remains introduction? Title of the performance, definitely. Name of the director, the playwright, any particular historical information. Remember what was Barucha doing? Historical information. What was the newspaper reviewer doing? He was also giving us historical information. So just plug it with the example that I've already shared with you. Name and date of the production you attended. This is very, very important. When you're writing a review, please mention which performance, which date, where did you attend it. Or else this becomes a review of all the performances that has happened. Performance happens multiple times. Actors don't prepare a production to make it happen once. They do it multiple times. And a performance like Pebet and Draupadi, they have been happening over ages now. In more than a decade, they have been playing this performance. Actors have changed, they have grown older, people have died, new people have come in, and still the performance lives, right? So that is the ephemeral nature of the performance. And hence, you will have to mention which particular production did you watch, where did you watch it, who were the people involved. So these are ethical standpoints as researchers that we cannot forget about. If you're writing critically, these are points that you should keep in mind, and you should actually document it in some place or the else in your writing, preferably in the introduction, in as succinct way as possible. Don't just go take your entire word limit. Then the thesis of your review, analysis, criticism, whatever you want to name it, whatever you're doing for whatever purpose, you go ahead and you lay out your thesis. Then the general relative success and failure of the production. Did it work? It did not work. So that kind of, an open judgment is something that has space and scope to be in the introduction. Your claim, your line of argument, your perspective of the debate, all of that. And then the grounding. Grounding is background, the building, the suspense story that we were building. That's part of the introduction. Then comes the thesis statement. As I've already said, it is a brief thematic summary, would be required in most cases. Please stop yourself very, very consciously from writing a plot line. Okay, this is most often that we write. Even I wrote it many times. When I say you don't write, doesn't mean I didn't do my mistakes. Okay, so I did a lot of that, and my teachers have bashed me for that. And then I've learned not to write it. So I'm just giving you an easy path. So if you want to do it, the way to do it and get better grades, so you can take it. Okay, so summary would be required, but summary only for the argument, not for the sake of the story, because I'm not asking you what the story is, right? This is college writing, a level higher up. So that's how we pump up our writing. Okay, so since there are lots of things that you would like to focus on, but no, you can't do that. You can't focus on everything. Boil down, make it smaller, make it more chiseled, make it more like marked and pointed and focused, and write about it. Okay, so I've already discussed about Barucha's text. All of it is that. Okay, I'll skip this example. It's not needed. What goes in the body of the paragraph? Something that you need to keep in mind is the body of the paragraph told you there are descriptions and analysis that you're using, the evidences, whether those quotes come from the production, those quotes come from the text, those quotes come from other criticisms written by other scholars and other reviewers, those quotes come from the larger perception and acceptance sentence in Barucha, remember? So larger scheme of things, ki kaise reception hai, and then Barucha saying, I don't agree. I don't think that is a wrong interpretation, and why that thing happened. So that channeling happening. But remember, if you have 3 claims in your introduction, you will have to write your body paragraphs in the same sequence of claims and arguments. Don't jumble it up. If you are laying out 1, 2, 3 claims, then your body paragraph should also have an internal logic and cohesiveness in a similar order. So that order should at least be same to begin with. All of these are beginners guidelines. I will not say that Barucha writes in this way. Okay, he will just bang my head and say, like, there are no rules. Okay, so there are only rules when to serve the function of writing. That's it. Okay, but then just to start with, these are rules that we'll stick with to make our life simpler. So once you've learned it, go ahead and let go of all your rules. So you keep to give you certain pointers. Ki kya sochna hai? Technical pointers, plot, acting, and direction. So try to keep in mind, technical are these. The technical are the lighting, the scening, the costumes, and all of that, the stage building and all of that. What is the infrastructure of the stage? If there's a lot of prop doors and props and blinds and things coming up and down the stage, has they been used? What is the influence? What is the color combination? Sometimes the lights use particular color schemes. Sometimes the background use particular color schemes. Is there an effect? Is there a reason why it's happening? Okay, so all of that. So when you describe the physical aspects of what you saw. Now, you might be confused. Now, description, analysis, evaluation, interpretation, so many words. What do they mean? Description is what you see. And maybe to a certain extent, what you feel immediately, not your deeper feeling, but what you think about it, how you close read it is what your analysis, interpretation, and evaluation of what you see, right? So all of you have seen this. You remember The Tempest, Shakespeare's King Lear? I think at least in minds, you know, like even if you haven't seen it, you know that there's a great performance, great drama written by Shakespeare named King Lear. So there was this particular scene, and this is an example from a reviewer, from a theatre criticism as well. So the Tempest scene in Lear, this is part of that writing, utilizes a particular hostile set. Okay, remember the word hostile. Hostile said in order to universalize the suffering depicted throughout the play, the lightings are dim and the background was flat black. Against that background was propped in no particular order 7 skulls that looked out over the events to come. Now you see the claim, the interpretation of the reviewer is कि hostile set है. But where is the evidence? The evidence is punctuated in the performance. Lights were dimmed, the background was black, and there were skulls on stage. There were 7 skulls in no particular order, right? So claims, there will be claims, but there will also be evidences, okay? Now, when you evaluate it, ये तो हो गया description. When you evaluate it, you can ask, why were the lights dim? Was it shock effect? Was it slow unfolding of horror? You can ask questions like, why was the background painted black? Was it mood to set the mood? Or was it for contrast? You could also ask, why was there no particular order to the skull? Why 7? Is it a number of some uncanny number? The connection, the 3, the 13, something like that. Is it a number that is repeated throughout the play? Has that number has some significance? Or is it just chaos and disorder? So all these kinds of questions are something that you will bring to the table. And this is the most important part of your review, because this is where you say what you have to say. Rest of it was all building up of the suspense. This is the climax of your writing. The review, the interpretation, the analysis, the evaluation is the climax of your writing, where you are actually using it, pumping it up with evidences and quotes. Okay, there is no fixed style of claiming and evidencing. The warrants can be pulled in from other texts in question, audience reception, the way the performance has been critiqued. And in the sequencing, in the paragraphing, do not forget the importance of the transition ideas, the transition sentences. Okay, now, secondly, firstly, thirdly, so all of those, the transitions have to be very, very clear. Remember that you will have to begin thinking that everything that happens in a production, in a performance, has a significance, because that's the point of intervention. You will have to see that everything has a meaning. However, do not panic if you don't get all the meanings, because that's not the purpose of the production. Sometimes productions will go beyond your perception and you will have to leave things there itself. So you might raise questions, you might not find answers, and you can leave those questions there for your audience, for your readers to ponder, for more critics to go in and see whether those questions have been answered or not. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is an opportunity to attack the performance if you didn't like it, to commend the performance if you liked it, but be very, very person who looks back. Okay, that's not a point. Finally, in your conclusion, do not write your entire thesis back again. Now, the reason why I mentioned it, this is one of the things that we were taught in school. कि conclusion में जाके introduction में जो बताया उस फिर से बता दो. नहीं बताना है. You don't say the same thing over and over again and bore your readers. Okay, so you do mention the thesis, but not in a similar mechanical way. However, what you can do is, what you can say is how your response to the thesis is valid and urgent and needs to be read. Why your performance criticism writing needs to be read and people need to take it seriously. Because if something wrong is going on in that production, it needs to be changed. If something's wonderful that's going on that production, you should tell people, go and see it. If you don't watch it, you are missing an opportunity. And that's what you can write in your conclusion. Remember not to add any new material in your conclusion. This is a very important part of argumentative writing, for academic writing. Conclusions are not places where you bring on new ideas to the table. However, do not be afraid to leave your readers with new questions to think about. Okay, so that they can tinker their minds, they can go back and think about it better. So that's how you structure your writing. Okay, so that's all from me today. Any questions you can ask quickly, three minutes maybe, till I'll just extend, or even the professors here, they can shoot questions if there's something that you would like to ask, question, respond, feedback. I'll just stop this.
Any questions, students? Feel free to
Ma'am,
ask.
excuse me. Yes, ma'am, for the performance reviews, you obviously do not have to consult the director of the play or the playwright or anything, right? But for the academic writings, do you need their approval or consultation and then write it, because it's basically their play, right? So do we need to approve them?
I don't think you need an approval or not, because the moment a text is living on a stage, it's for an audience. You don't need an approval. But if you are sure you're going to write something very, very negative, or very, very something which is going to affect the director in some way, and you have a scope to just soundboard that idea with the director, that this is what I feel. And maybe there is a way in which you can just confirm that this is what I take from your performance. Did you really mean it?
Okay.
Right? You can go ahead and ask, but you are under no obligation to go and ask a production house or a director, because the moment it is staged for an audience, every audience has a right to go back and write a theater criticism. You don't do it. And when you're not quoting what he said, you're quoting the performance. And when the performance has been staged, it becomes a text. And you can quote texts. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. So was it clear? I had tried to punch in a lot of concepts, writing and performance together, performative writing, writing in performance. So was it clear, or was it like, I don't know.
Yes, ma'am. It was very clear and very insightful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Is that all then? Sachin? You're muted.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing all your knowledge and all the insightful lessons. I'm sure each of us have been very enlightened with all that you've given us and all the different ways that we can look upon it. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. Now it's time to acknowledge and be grateful for this wonderful opportunity. I call upon Aishwarya to give the vote of thanks.
Voltaire once said that appreciation is a wonderful thing. It makes what is excellent in others belong to us as well. I, Aishwarya Radhakrishnan, student of second year PEP, on behalf of all those present, would like to acknowledge and thank with a grateful heart our esteemed chief guest, Ms. Paulami Das, for taking time and sharing your experience through narration of your own journey of life as an academician. Thank you very much, ma'am. It is a great pleasure to thank our beloved principal, Reverend Augustine George, for giving us this opportunity to gain insight about the subject from an expert. Thank you, Father. I thank Father Lijo P. Thomas, Father Emmanuel P.J., Father Joshi Matthew, and Father Deepu in their absentia. I thank Dr. Gopakumar A.V., Dean of Humanities, for your continuous support and encouragement. Thank you, sir. I also thank Professor Jerin Jose, Program Coordinator, Department of English, for being a supportive pillar for this program. I'd like to thank Professor Anand Sachin and Professor Nancy Abraham from the Department of Performing Arts for giving us this great opportunity, wording the world stage, critical writing on performances. Thank you, sir and ma'am, for arranging this talk for all of us. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank all my classmates for being a wonderful audience. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Now I request Professor Anand Sachin to conclude the meeting.
Yes, I mean it's a very like ongoing task, like to be a critical writer. And like Ma'am Paulomi, like she used to help like people who are writing PhDs, and like so many of my friends, like they have very much benefited from her like assistance and like help in terms of critical writing. And she have a very good grasp on like the text as a structured abstraction than the content of it. And that is the one thing I would take home from you today, that like how to imagine the text as a performance space of letters.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And like with this note, I conclude the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sachin, for having me. Thank you, Sachin, for giving me this opportunity to interact with your wonderful students. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll end the session then. Bye-bye. Take care. Have a nice day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Stay in
ma'am.
touch.
Thank you,
Stay in
ma'am.
touch.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I'm on Instagram. Follow me. Instagram and Facebook.
Can
Okay.
everyone turn the video on for a moment so that we can
Oh,
see
yeah. The picture. That's right.
can everyone turn the video on for a moment? Kesia, Chantrika, Anushka, Blessing, Tiara, Vismaya, Siddhant, Anna. Oh, see, look at the faces of my students, man. See, like
Suddenly, after the entire session. Huh?
Chandrika, Reet, Siddhant, Anna, Vismaya, Martina, Aditi. Can you all turn on the video? Last few people? Yeah. Great. Chandrika, Vismaya, Aditi, Anna, Vismaya.
Getting to your students to turn on the video is one task in online teaching, huh? You're muted, Sachin.
Can somebody take the screenshot? It's a tab plus print screen, right? I cannot work on it. Control print screen, just print screen.
So Windows plus print screen.
Windows plus print screen. Thank you. Yeah, it's done now. Once again. All good. 3, 2, 1. Great. Great. So thank you all. Thank you all for the participation. Like I hope you all like keep these things, keep those like highlights in mind, and like maybe we can work on with the lessons we learned from here to the further assignments. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay. And I've also shared my Instagram account in case you want to follow. And because I know I'll share these 2 readings with you and also the video link so that you can go back and keep on thinking about it. You have the recording as well. So you can go back to the class lectures. And in case you want to reach out to me, Sachin, the email is already there. So that's one way, definitely formal way, or else Instagram and Facebook as well. Okay. So just say I'm from Bangalore, Kristu Jayanti College, and I'll relate. Okay.
And you can tell your like Insta handle, like what's it
Yeah,
called?
I just shared it. One is this one that I shared. This is Polumi_Das 1986. And the other,
right.
yeah.
The writing, you have a writing booth Insta.
Yeah, the writing booth one I'm just sharing. Just a second. I'll also share that one. So that's called
tips on academic writing and critical writing.
Yes, this is the one on the academic writing and critical one. So this is called the writing booth Logos Lab. So writing booth is the space of virtual writing sessions that I host for all kinds of writers who come together virtually as a community and we write. And the Logos Lab is the larger all events, courses, workshops that I do for critical writing and things like that. So that's the thing. So these are the 2 Instagram handles. In case you want to follow, you can do that. I'm also on Facebook. There's a page called the Writing Booth. You can also fire your questions there. But be in touch, guys. Lovely talking to you all. Okay, Sachin, you're not on Facebook, right?
No.
Yeah, I tried to find you yesterday. I wanted to tag you to the poster, but I couldn't. Like, why are you not on Facebook?
Social discretion.
Oh, and not on Instagram as well.
No, we will share those things later. No, I'll call you in person.
Oh, I get it. Okay, chalo. Now, I was trying to search you yesterday. I was like, where is Sachin? Where is Sachin? I can see a lot of people have told about you. I can see your pictures, but I couldn't find you. Like, oh. Anyway, lovely meeting you people. Love you, Barb. Have fun.
Bye-bye.